When Elias Carter woke up that morning, he expected it to be just another day, tending his farm, working the soil, and enjoying the simple life he'd always known. But this day would test him in ways he couldn't imagine, uncovering not only the strength of his spirit, but the unshakable power of family. As Elias went about his daily chores, he noticed something unusual: two officers lingering near the edge of his property watching. His every move, their plans were anything but friendly. What began as a routine show of authority quickly escalated into a sinister confrontation driven by prejudice and greed. Elias's story is one of courage and resilience, and it starts here. Despite the growing challenges he faced due to the color of his skin, Elias was no ordinary farmer. Beneath his humble exterior lay a history of family strength and influence that would soon come to light, shocking not only his tormentors, but the entire town. This is a journey of determination and the fight for justice. Before we dig deeper into Elias's gripping story, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. And if you're ready to be moved, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. The morning sun stretched long shadows across Elias's farm as he worked through his routine. At 76 years old, his pace was slower than it once was, but his hands were as steady as ever. Decades of working the land had left their mark on him. His skin weathered, his hair silvery and cut close. He knelt in the rich soil to inspect a row of young corn, his fingers brushing tender leaves. "You're looking good this year," he murmured to himself, a soft satisfaction in his voice. The farm wasn't vast by modern standards, but Elias treated every inch of its 25 acres with care. The rows of crops were immaculate, the fencing sturdy, and the red barn freshly painted. His modest white farmhouse stood at the end of a dirt driveway, its porch swept clean despite the ever-present Georgia red clay dust. This land had been in his family for 3 generations, first purchased by his grandfather after emancipation. Elias felt that legacy in every step he took. Across the fields later that morning, Elias climbed into his well-maintained pickup truck and drove into town for supplies. As he pulled into Carson's general store, the bell above the door jingled cheerfully. "Good morning, Mr. Carter," called out James Carson, the young shopkeeper. "How are those watermelons coming along?" Elias gave a rare soft smile. "Coming along fine. Should have the first batch ready in a couple of weeks." "Mom will be glad to hear that," James said warmly. "No one's watermelons compare to yours, Mr. Carter." As Elias gathered his supplies, he noticed the subtle ways people interacted with him. Some, like Mrs. Harrison, a retired teacher, offered polite nods. Others, like Bill Whitaker and his teenage son, avoided eye contact, shifting away. When Elias came near, the unspoken racial dynamics of their small town played out in these quiet moments. "Don't mind them, Mr. Carter," James said quietly as he rang up Elias's item. "Some folks just can't move with the times. Been that way all my life, son," Elias replied, his voice gentle but tired. "Some things change slower than others." Driving home, Elias glanced at the picture tucked into his dashboard, a younger version of himself standing proudly next to his son Marcus at his FBI Academy graduation. Now a high-ranking official, Marcus had come a long way from the curious boy who once followed Elias around the farm, asking endless questions. Elias's chest swelled with pride at the thought of his son's achievements, though he rarely spoke of them, drawing attention to success, especially as a black man in a small southern town, often drew trouble. Just as that thought crossed his mind, red and blue lights flashed in his rearview mirror. Elias tightened his grip on the steering wheel and pulled over, his heart pounding. 2 officers approached Miller, a stocky man with tightly cropped blonde hair, and Tucker, tall and lean with a permanent scowl. "Good morning, cops. Is there a problem?" Elias asked, keeping his hands exposed on the wheel. "License and registration," Miller barked. As Elias reached for his documents, Tucker added, "Your taillights out with all due respect, officer. I checked my lights yesterday. They were working fine," Elias replied. Miller's tone turned sharp. "You calling my partner a liar?" "No, sir. Just stating a fact." "Step out of the vehicle," Miller ordered. Elias complied, moving carefully. The officers conducted an overly thorough inspection of his truck, their intentions clear. Passers by slowed to watch the scene, an elderly man being harassed on the side of the road. Finally, Tucker said, "Well, would you look at that? Tail lights working now. Must have been a loose connection. You're lucky this time," Miller added, returning Elias's papers with a smirk. "Better keep everything in order, Mr. Carter. Never know when we might stop by again." Elias waited until they drove off before continuing home, his hands trembling on the wheel. Back at the farm, he tried to shake off the meeting by immersing himself in work, but the unease lingered as the sun set. Elias stood at the edge of his fields. The orange and purple hues of the sky usually brought him peace, but today they only deepened his anxiety. He thought about his hands that had toiled on this land for decades, hands that had raised the sun to fight for justice. Yet these same hands trembled under the weight of the officer's veiled threats walking back to his house. Elias whispered into the darkness, "Lord, give me strength," unbeknownst to Elias. Miller and Tucker were already plotting their next move from the comfort of their patrol car. They talked his farm and its value. "You see how well maintained everything is," Miller said. "Bet he's sitting on a nice pile of cash." Tucker nodded. "People like him don't trust banks. Probably has money stashed all over that land." Their dark laughter filled the car as they planned another inspection, this time with demands for payment. When the officers arrived unannounced the next day, Elias was tending his tomatoes. They claimed to be conducting a property inspection, citing supposed complaints about safety violations. Over the next hour, they fabricated a list of issues, each accompanied by thinly veiled threats. "This could mean serious trouble," Tucker said, "unless of course you handle it unofficially." $2,000 should cover it. Elias's stomach churned as he gave over the money he'd been saving for new irrigation equipment. But the harassment didn't stop. Each week brought new demands, draining his savings and spirit. His farm began to show signs of neglect, and even his prize crop suffered. Finally unable to bear it alone, Elias confided in Marcus, his son. Furious promised to take action. Marcus contacted the FBI, starting a full investigation. Soon the corruption of Miller and Tucker unraveled, revealing years of extortion targeting vulnerable members of their community. The story culminated in a dramatic confrontation. When the officers returned, Marcus, backed by a team of federal agents, arrested them on the spot. The truth of their crimes sent shockwaves through the town, igniting a wave of unity and reform. 3 months later, Elias's farm had become a beacon of hope. Volunteers helped restore the land, and the community, once divided, worked together to rebuild. Marcus's efforts spurred systemic change, ensuring justice and equality for future generations. Elias Carter's story is a testament to resilience, the power of family, and the strength that comes from sticking together as the Georgia sun set over his fields. Elias knew that his legacy of justice, unity, and courage would endure for generations.